Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of the Growth Nexus Podcast. My name's Ryan Shelley, and I am your host. Today, we're going to be talking with Tom Kieley. Tom is a serial entrepreneur. He's had two successful startups that are still running businesses today. He's on the board of both of these businesses, and is kind of looking for his next opportunity. He's also a co-author of a book called Startup Lessons Learned Along the Way. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the concepts in that book, how community and culture play a key role, how we leverage technology. Honestly, how do we find those specific things that differentiate our brand from other brands? And some of the lessons that he's learned from growing these businesses that honestly I found very helpful for me as a small business owner and somebody who works with both large businesses as well as startups. And I think that you're going to find some value in it as well. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Growth Nexus Podcast. And I'm on with Tom Kieley. He's a serial entrepreneur from the Austin, Texas area. And we're just going to have an open conversation today about being a business owner, being a CEO, and really how do we grow our businesses in a world where, there's influences of technology, artificial intelligence, all of these other things that we can possibly do. But one of the things I really like about Tom and just the content I've read that he's put out and some of the other episodes that he's done with other podcasts is their culture, their human-centric approach, like never forgetting the fact that people are at the heart of business. So, Tom, you want to just give a quick introduction and we can just have a conversation.
Yeah, appreciate the time, Ryan. Excited to be here today and with your guests from viewers. Long story. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I'm like most entrepreneurs, I can talk forever. But it kind of started as a journey in college. I always knew I wanted to run and own my own business, but didn't quite know how I'd get there or what that meant yet. So I took the corporate route, went to Dell for many years, and in 2008, a few years into my career at Dell, I launched my first company called RightGift. Very small consumer app made kind of when the iPhone was coming of age to help with gift giving for major life events. Learned a significant amount about overbuilding a product, spending too much money before listening to customers. Made a huge amount of mistakes. Spent most of my wife and I's brand new wife and I's life savings, uh, but really wouldn't change it for the world. It was an incredible experience. Met a lot of great people, and some of those people still work for my latest company to this day. But that business slowly evolved and pivoted as they all do over time. At least many do. And today I'm still on the board of that company and watching it do quite well and helping nonprofits manage spend and procurement for their organizations with the vast amounts of in-kind items and donations that they have to buy for their causes. Fast forward, again, long-winded, but I met my co-founder for SourceDay. So SourceDay became my next venture almost 7, 8 years later. We launched in late 2015 a procurement automation platform out of our backgrounds in manufacturing and supply chain. Both of us had relevant experience in manufacturing from prior lives, and quickly, kind of took to a vision that he had that we really saw as a gap in the market. And so Clint McCree and I, my co-founder of SourceDay, bootstrapped and for 2 years built in stealth mode a very heavy enterprise B2B SaaS platform, which was something I had never done before and something neither of us had ever done, but used my same team from RightGift on the development and product engineering side to put that MVP together, knowing much more from when I built my first company to build a very small MVP and then find out what was missing, what gaps needed to be there. So we got that product to market in late 2015 and have since raised $63 million for that business. And as of October of 2024, I stepped down as CEO and still on the board of that company today.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so kind of looking from, your previous venture, you step out, you want to be a business owner. You kind of go all in. And I think a lot of us, do that. We go build business. We have an idea in mind and we go try to build the finished product. You talked a little bit about, kind of maybe the walls you hit there with that. What what kind of lessons from that led you to go more of the MVP route on Source Day?
Yeah, great question. And a lot to be learned there. As you're embarking on building a new product, um, really your vision is really your unique piece to market. But it's going to evolve drastically over time from that original vision. Our vision was massive. We had a platform vision that was going to bring buyers and suppliers together while they're communicating and collaborating on inbound materials, parts, pieces, cost of goods that go into a finished physical product through a manufacturing process. The long-term vision was, we could build a marketplace. We could bring together quality inspections and payments and processing of invoicing. Um, it could go on and on. It can spiral for forever. And so, what you really have to hone in on, and what we found was our core niche that is still today our number one product, and really, our differentiator as the leader in that category, is really visibility in real time of suppliers' ability to meet inbound demand. And what that means in layman's terms is keeping production lines running for manufacturers by making sure that they have the right parts in the right quantities at the right time at the right price, to make sure that they're never stocked out or gapped out on any one single part. A 5-cent part can stop a multi-million-dollar shipment from being manufactured and shipped out the door and recognizing the revenue. And so that one differentiator allowed us to really focus on, let's just make sure we're the best at just delivering the PO to the supplier, giving suppliers the ability to passively communicate their on-time delivery updates, their changes to quantities and prices and due dates, and potentially part revision numbers, anything that may potentially change in the procurement process through a manufacturing cycle, um, needed to be our differentiator. And we today have really changed the way procurement organizations for manufacturers work in a digital, optimized, and completely automated way that has over time turned it into things we never even foresaw. With AI being such a big thing now, and really sticking to our roots and not trying to get too wide or too broad into solving other problems. We now have the largest, most proprietary data set of supplier on-time delivery down to the SKU and the component, showing true and accurate lead times. So we have a predictability engine and an AI model that now shows risk either before a buyer puts out a purchase order, or at the moment, or throughout the life cycle of a purchase order. And that really eliminates all of the risk in supply chain and manufacturing, which drives real dollars to the bottom line and helps drive predictability in their revenue. So the core lesson for us was stick to our MVP, listen to customers when it aligns to our core thesis, and then push the other noise out to a future problem or a future date, and really hone in on being the best at what we sought out to be. And as long as that is resonating in market with revenue and customer stickiness and concentration of continued growth, then you're onto something. But if the revenue isn't there, of course, you've got to continue to tweak and iterate and refine and maybe pivot, which I had to do with both companies.
So one of the interesting parts there, especially AI, and gives us the ideas that we can do anything. Essentially, that's kind of the message that's being kind of told in the world of AI, right? The sky's the limit. Computers will automate your whole lives. Everything could be solved. Like those of us working in technology realize, well, there are actually limitations to artificial intelligence. But even more important than that, I think, is the idea of sticking with your differentiator. A lot of times when things get easier to build or manufacture or push out, it's very easy to muddy the noise. And one thing that I'm just curious about what you were talking about was that differentiation. One, how did you really find that and hone in on that? And then what boundaries did you put in place, if you did, or what, to make sure that you didn't just go, well, I guess now we can do this and this and this, to where you've now diluted your product.
Yeah, and it wasn't a straight line, and we absolutely made mistakes along the road. And it really became, again, from my learnings from Right Gift, when I overbuilt the product and I sought out what I drew out of my product development lifecycle. I went and built all of that before I even went to market, which rookie mistake. They ended up using about 10% of what I built, and to this day, that component is still being used as probably 10% of the whole product. And so from that realization, I really sought out to make sure that with SourceDay, were we solving a real problem that had a massive TAM, a target addressable market, and was it something that the market we were serving wanted to fix, or something that they saw as a problem or a challenge in their business. And that may evolve as well. Our initial SourceDay thesis was actually a reverse IT marketplace to help organizations procure physical hardware devices for their IT infrastructure. And clearly, if you followed what I mentioned SourceDay does today, it is wildly different from where we started. And that came about by selling that product to customers, getting in beta, and then telling us this is really nice, but the reality is our procurement problems persist really with what's tied to revenue, which is our cost of goods sold, our parts and pieces of materials that come from our direct material suppliers that keep production lines running. And so we did a hard pivot and listened to the customer there, because that was clearly a massive gap in the market. And we stuck in that lane for probably 4 years. And I did exactly what, an entrepreneur typically will do, is continue to listen to customers and overbuild and kind of go outside your thesis at times because you see gaps in the market. And so we took some paths and we built 3 or 4 other synergistic products that were in the life cycle of procuring materials, whether it be a quality inspection process or a RFQ, request for quote process, and even at one point building an accounts payable automation solution. So that's reconciling the accounts payable invoices with the PO and the receipt. Those things ultimately, many of them exist in the platform to this day, but still our core product and our core offering is and always will be the differentiator that we have from day 2 after the first pivot of the PO inbound supply visibility. And even still, we sold one of our pieces of development, the accounts payable portion, was sold to who was now a great partner of ours in market, where we're referring business to each other. And so the lesson from that story for us was, while our customers were screaming and saying they couldn't find ways to solve these other problems that were kind of synergistic and in the line or the lineage of procurement, did not mean that we should go be the experts in those things, and ultimately became distractions for the business. But we were able to solve, problems for customers with some of that functionality that we built over time. And again, many of those features are still in the product today, but to this day, the core product differentiator from that initial development is what customers come to SourceDay for, and our major differentiator. So there's times when you can listen to customers and go outside the box, but you need to be very diligent and prescriptive on what that looks like and why.
Yeah, I think that's the balance. I think Steve Jobs, I'm not a butcher, it's not a direct quote, but talks about um, i- i- if we built what the customer wanted. Oh no, it was Henry Ford. That's who said it. Jeez, Steve Jobs had a relation to it. But if we built what the customer wanted, we'd have a nicer horse and buggy.
Faster horses.
Yeah, yeah, right. There you go. But at the same time,
Quote.
listening to your market too. Like, so you talk about like listening to your customer, like marketing, managers have said that for years, CEOs, everybody says that. But how did you guys go about actually doing that?
Listening to customers or
Yeah, yeah, just
sticking.
practically, what
Yeah.
did it look like?
Yeah, it's hard, right? When you're a young company, just trying to get revenue, it's easy to just say, yes, we can build that. Will you sign the order form, right? Just
Mhm.
give us the revenue and we'll go build whatever you want. And there are times when you'll do that strategically to take a large logo win or something that you think could maybe be repeatable for other customers down the road, but it's not core product. And that's ultimately how we ended up with those, cursory products that we developed kind of outside of our core. Um, what we ended up doing is over time, you start to understand the costs to maintain those other features, functions, modules that you build. And are they Trojan horses or leading indicators into getting more customers or more growth or not. And if they're not the reason a customer comes to you, you're now supporting kind of a side project for a couple of one-off customers that, may have gotten you some revenue in the moment, but now you're having to pay for it long term in maintenance and engineering and QA and bugs and, support, training, all the things. And those costs can spiral rapidly. And so for us, as we got to certain phases of growth, we started to tell customers no. We would say, look, if you're really looking for something that's going to be a deep quality management system, we'll refer you to another platform. That's not who we are. And we're proud of what we built, and we're confident that we're the best at what we do in the procurement life cycle, and managing your inbound risk. But, a partner will be better suited for you. And when you're ready to look at what we do, we'll be here. And so it's hard to say that when you're a young company, because you need the revenue and you want to show the market. And, if you're fundraising, you need to raise money and you need to hit numbers and bookings. And, you'll, as a very young company, it's easy to fall into the trap of saying yes. And my caution would be, it would need to be an outsized ACV, annual contract value, or revenue customer contract that's willing to also speak of the huge value your core product delivers to get you to go do something that's a side project. And in the best case possible, get them to pay for it. If it's really that important to them and you're willing to go outside of your core box, have them pay a maintenance or an additional fee to support and build that technology as you see it as a one-off solution for them. But to your point, it's over time, you have to have conviction and have the confidence to say, no, we are in this box. This is what we're best at. And we're going to no longer agree to do things outside of that just to get revenue. As good as that revenue or logo looks, the long-term risks and costs outweigh every dollar you'll get from that customer.
Yeah. And sometimes the cost isn't just monetary. Sometimes it's, it's emotional. It's even people cost, And I think I've made that mistake myself, even being in the services industry, where it's like, we have a certain line of things that we're very good at, but it's like, well, they need that. They have the capital pay for it. We need the revenue right now. But now we've got this bloated part of our business that we actually don't generate enough revenue to maintain that. So now we're actually losing money month over month and everybody's miserable. So morale's down,
Right.
Sure, we're getting increased revenue, but it's barely covering what we're doing. So, you talk a lot about culture. You talk a lot about, um, the community and how actually, I think one of the chapters in your book is that culture and community are forever linked, right? Something where you guys talk about that concept.
Yeah.
And that's important, right? Because you're in a technology space, you do automated side of things, but human beings are involved, people are involved, and so how do you kind of balance, or how have you just over your career, I guess, in tech, like balance the human side of things?
That's a great question. And as you mentioned, our book speaks a lot about culture. And before I jump into that, I'll say one more thing from your last question is, uh, go survey your customers. If there's a new product vision idea that you're thinking about going into, go ask a very direct question in person live to see what the customer's reaction is to that. And if it's a real opportunity or not. And that could be a really big indicator. If every one of them says no, except for two, run away. Anyway,
No, that's a great point
on the
too. And
culture,
I'll back up on, I think that's, anonymous surveys or asking chatbots to tell
yeah,
you isn't going to get you the answer. Like, and it's easier because there's no, the fear, the kind of the fear of facing people is gone. But like, you know,
yeah,
that's been really helpful for me, just to have candid conversations with clients and saying, what is
yeah.
providing you the most value? Okay, let's just do that then. So yeah, I like that. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, no, it just popped in my head as something we started to do much better as we got older and more mature.
Mm,
And some of that came from great people bringing in great process and ideas to go, hey, why don't we go talk to customers before we start building something there?
yeah, go figure.
And yeah, and oftentimes I would do it myself, right? Because I want to go make the personal assessment with my team on the call, but understand and visually see their reaction. Is it something that they seem excited about or not?
Mm.
Um, and so, I think from a culture standpoint, my co-founder and I on day one, this is in our book. The first thing we did was buy a very overly expensive whiteboard and very small, tiny little office that we were borrowing, and wrote on it, the vision of the solution, and on the other side of the whiteboard was culture. And we were really intentional very early, just based on prior work experiences and cultural experiences from our careers, having seen good and bad cultures. It was crucial for us to have a truly intentional culture from day one. And so that was, half of our whiteboard from the moment we started ideating on the company. And that vision was really all about having transparency, listening to everyone. Every idea is something that we should take serious from every employee throughout the organization, and really challenge and encourage every team member in the organization always to break things. One of my biggest sayings that I always spoke at in every AHOD and every town hall meeting for the company every week was, if you're not trying to break something, or if you're not trying to innovate, you're in breaking something, then we're really not moving the needle forward.
Mm.
And so breaking things to a limit of where we can recover from.
Right.
But, let's be really innovative and encourage people to not be afraid to be punished for breaking something, but actually uh, to be celebrated for triumph. And that really brought in a culture of people that were self-starters, that were motivated to go build and create and own the future of the company, um, and make sure that they were a part of, everything that we solved and did and accomplished. And another big piece of that was really celebrating every win. And early on, the wins can be really small. It could be a product release. It could be, getting a user to click a new button and get value out of it. Um, it could be anything. And all of those wins need to be celebrated for each milestone. And over time, the wins will get much bigger. But that doesn't mean you should still not celebrate even the smaller ones. And wins are not just revenue, right? It's a great customer support feedback, NPS. It's a great product release. It's, a completely bug-free product release. It's, record retention and renewals for a quarter or a week.
Mm.
It's everything throughout the organization. And that way, I think organizations, we fell into this trap pretty often, in good times and in bad times, where you're only focused on sales and revenue.
Yeah.
But there's 80% of the company, in some cases, that are doing everything else to make sales and marketing function and successful. But companies too often get caught up in only talking about sales, only talking about revenue, only talking about their successes, and then hiding behind failures. So you have to celebrate the wins, learn from the failures, and encourage people to really overachieve at every level and every role. And that's not just from leadership and just from founders. You got to hire people that believe in that same vision and have that same cultural kind of transparency
Hmm.
and trust.
Yeah. No, that's definitely huge. Like I resonate a lot with that. That's one of the reasons why, I started my own business and decided to scale this instead of, have a corporate 9 to 5 job. Like, sure, like now I'm on call 24/7, but it's different, right? Because I love the people that I get to work with. I love the clients that I get to engage with, and having that similar open door policy, and I've had my team challenge me on that, because they've been to places where that's not the case. I was like, if you think I'm wrong, tell me. Let's talk through this and let's figure it out. And some of our best solutions have come from that. Um, you know, uh, Even down to little things. I was doing some video work, and I readjusted some stuff, and I shared it with my COO. Um, and she just tore it apart, and I was really angry, but she was right. And it challenged me to upscale, and I made it better, so it was good, but it was, and I always bring like little things like that, say like, look, you can trust me like that. So do you have any stories like that where you've kind of challenged your team to put your culture to the test?
All the time. Man, I think I don't remember who said this, but yeah, I think if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And so, I always made an intentional point to hire people with different experiences, backgrounds, and more intelligence and different expertise than me, which wasn't very hard from my vantage point. But the the intent was to always make sure that you had people that you could trust to have better ideas and a different viewpoint to how to solve a problem or how to create something. And I would find myself all the time coming up with a new hook or reason or a smaller product feature that seemed small in my brain, to go get new business excited about buying faster. And very often the product team and sales engineers and the engineers would say that's not our wheelhouse. This is the wrong direction. We shouldn't go down that path, and it's not going to work. Or hey, you tried that 2 years ago. You just don't remember. And
Mm.
so people constantly kind of keeping you in check of things you've either done in the past and going so fast you forget, or getting outside the kind of the box that we're experts in, trying to solve a different problem, right?
Yeah.
Trying to solve a sales and marketing growth scale velocity issue by creating more products. And, that's not necessarily the right answer. And so I had great people that were always, keeping all of us in kind of the right direction, because we'd set values and we'd set company goals and direction annually, and reiterate them quarterly. And so that way everyone's on the same page of what the objectives are and what the goals and targets need to be.
Yeah, it's really cool how that, just kind of comes back to what we were talking about a little bit before about that differentiation. How do you put these boundaries in? It's like your team is part of that process, and instead of having that traditional top-down leadership where leadership dictates, um, allowing your team to have a voice actually can help you have those guardrails so you don't go off and start adding things you shouldn't be adding or doing things you
Right.
shouldn't be doing. Which is like a cool thing. Like that's how communities work. Like you can still be a leader and allow your team to help shape and formulate you. And honestly, if you're not, I would really question whether or not you're actually a leader. But
Yeah.
we're not having that conversation
Right.
today. But it's a really cool example, I think, what you just gave of your team being that guide rail, and making sure that like this is what we're actually good at. And I love that reminder. I get that often too. I think that's one thing entrepreneurs have to be careful of is, you know, uh, we go so fast we forget what we did last
Oh
week
yeah,
and we forget what didn't work, so we try it again. We bang our heads against the wall when we realize it. But yeah, that's very cool.
absolutely.
I want to be respectful of your time, but I'm just curious what's next for you. Now that you're kind of you've had two really cool startup ventures, and that are actually still working and growing, which is I think is really has something to say about what you've shared about today, your leadership style and the way that you see the market. A lot of people once they exit, things don't always continue, but that's happening with the
Okay.
businesses you've done. So bravo to that, man. That's really really impressive. Um, but, yeah, what's next for you?
I appreciate that. I think, I'm incredibly proud of what we've built. And again, it was all hard work of, hundreds of people here over the years. And the team members that are, grinding on SourceDay today, still making us, a great growing high value customer platform, that's continually improving value for customers every day is something that I'm immensely proud of. And the team that, is running the business is doing an incredible job. And for me, for the first time in my life, I've taken, more than one day between roles or startups. And it's now been 4 months, and I've done a lot of recharging, spending time with kids and family, and
Absolutely.
soul searching and trying to figure out what matters to me. And I continue to go back to, I love building and creating and innovating. Um, and that came about from looking at buying several businesses. I think there's some kind of something in the water right now where software entrepreneurs are venturing out and looking at buying home services companies, and you
Mhm,
see all the HVAC
mhm.
private equity roll ups, and that. that still is very interesting to me, and I think there's a lot that you can take from the tech world and go and bring into that incredible space and,
Yep.
really make more efficiency. Um, so that's something that I think will be in my future, but, having realized that I still need to go integrate and build and use what I've learned over the last 2 software startups, to go do at least 1, maybe 2 more.
Cool.
So I'm narrowing in on a couple of, early stage companies right now to, potentially join as a CEO and take it to kind of the next phase of growth and
Very cool.
go to market and operations. So I'm undecided, but that's what I'm excited about. And I think, with AI where it is, I think there's a lot that can be done a lot quicker, in the world of going to market and,
For sure.
acquiring customers.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'll be keeping an eye out on what you're doing and definitely stay connected. But I appreciate your time. The insight has been really awesome. Just for me personally, with just conversation. It's kind of some of the things that I've been working through, even with my own business. So it's been super helpful to me. So I really appreciate your time and thanks for everything.
You as well. Yeah, I appreciate the time and, let's keep in touch.
Cool. I just want to say thanks again for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Like I said, these have been great conversations for me just personally as a business owner and somebody who's always trying to stretch and learn and grow themselves. If there's topics that you wish we covered that we maybe haven't covered yet or other insights that you feel maybe we should be adding, again, please comment. Please send in some emails and let us know what you think. And if you find this content helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. We'd really appreciate that. And we hope to see you on the next episode.